Welcome to Talking Orangutans, a podcast where I talk to people who I think have valid life experiences that actually deserves recognition, or who I feel I want to talk to. This podcast is for me to just meet interesting people, listening to their stories, and maybe somebody else finds something inspiring, or maybe you just find a way to chill out for the day. I want to introduce Ivor for podcast number 16. I've known Ivor since just after high school, which is about 15 years ago. He knew my brother. So weirdly, the podcast starts off with us in a very light and positive way, talk about my brother, his death from cancer. And then we went into a few topics that Ivor finds interesting. For example, militant atheism. We talked about being religious and then evolving or changing into agnostics and atheists. We talked about Southeast Asia. We talked quite a bit about politics in South Africa. We talked a little bit about race. Ivor dated a lady for about 10 years that's a different skin color than him, which sounds weird that we actually have to mention it, but a different race. And in South Africa, let's say 15 years ago, in 2004, that was very odd, and it's still odd. So we talked a lot about that and how we observe things from an independent view after leaving South Africa. So I hope you enjoy it. It's quite a long podcast. Break it up into a few sessions and listen to it on audio. You can do that at Stitcher, Anchor.fm, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram, where I post updates on upcoming podcasts. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Sick, bro.
Are we?
We're doing this in English.
Yes.
All right, cool. So if anyone says these two guys sound like they two Afrikaans guys with weird accents, then please go fuck yourself. We are two guys with weird English accents.
Yeah.
It's just that I've lived abroad for 6 years, and I'm quite friends with a lot of foreign-speaking English people, and the same for you. As a traveler, you have a lot of foreign friends, so we want them to be able to listen to this.
Yeah.
So if you don't like our accents, then go fuck yourself, basically. I don't know what to say. I'm going to just pop that one like that. So this is Ivor. I think this is podcast 16. I have 3 that I'm busy editing and bringing out, so I'm a little bit confused. So thank you for being guest number 16.
Cool.
Just the introduction to Ivor. You born and raised in Stellenbosch?
Born in Pretoria and lived there for a very short while.
Yeah.
And then some excursions in the Middle East, and then came back and lived in Stellenbosch from when I was 6 until way too many years later.
And then were you Paulus or Stellenbosch?
Paulus.
All right.
Yes.
Which year were you there?
98.
98. So I was in Standard 6 in 99. So you left a year before I got there. So we're both from Stellenbosch, basically. Did you have classes with my dad?
No, I didn't have classes
but you
with
knew
him.
He
but
was.
I knew him. You know, he was definitely like a presence. Put it that way.
I'm thinking of getting Koenie van Vieren on one of my podcasts.
That would be an experience.
I would be like,
watch that.
Fuck it hell, imagine chatting here with Koenie van Vieren for half an hour.
Yeah.
And then, so basically that's how Ivor and I know each other. Like everyone in Stellenbosch knows each other.
Yeah, and it's weird. You always have there's these people. I kind of feel like that way about you. I know of your existence for a very long time. I know we should have gotten together a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's like you just orbit this other person and somehow never really actually sit down for a beer. You know?
Yeah. And it's weird how, but it's like so the first time I really got to know about you is when I worked at Fandango's.
Yes.
Which is a local restaurant where your girlfriend worked. And then
Yeah.
that's how I got to know you. And then when I came back for Dwart's ending,
Yeah.
I was at the house each day, and
Yes.
then some people would come visit, and then this
Yeah.
very nice guy came to visit, and it was your brother. And I'm
Right.
like, how fucking small is this world?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you all somehow connected like this. And I haven't seen you in quite a few years.
Yes. I mean, there was the Fandango time, and then that was a good era. But after that, I was under the impression you're somewhere abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know where.
And
or-
I left for overseas. Fandango, I was working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Fandango and another one, Basic Bistro.
Right.
So that I can get enough money to leave the country.
Yes.
So I think I left in October of that
Mm.
year that I started at Fandango. And that was basically on and off 6 years in Europe.
Yeah.
And I got back about 4 years ago now. Fuck, it's 4 years. 4 years since my
yeah.
brother died. How crazy is that?
Dude,
Almost.
that is crazy. Time is just, it feels like the last 2 years, especially last 3 years, it's been flying.
And I still make inappropriate jokes of my brother's death. And
Okay.
people are, they're still not used to it.
Right. Well,
And they're like, it's 4 years, so maybe, but no. But it's like,
Yeah.
have you ever watched a stand-up comic making a joke about Diana's death or about
Yeah.
someone's death, and they do it in a funny way?
yes. Yeah.
So why can't I do it about my brother?
I think that he would appreciate it. Honestly, I would want that.
Yeah.
You know, if I go, please get some laughter
Yeah.
out of it. Right.
You use my life as material, any
Yeah.
part of it. Plus, it's like if one person can joke about my brother, it's me,
Yeah.
because I knew him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Of course.
you know, so
It's not really for other people to have an opinion about whether you
Yeah.
can joke about it.
I'm gonna say this now because I say this a lot in private. But so my brother died in middle of November.
Okay.
So I was joking with some of my friends. I'm like, I think this was post funeral.
Yeah.
But I was like, so I have to speak at the funeral. And my opening line was, or wanted to be, so each cloud has a silver lining. One present less you have to buy for Christmas this year. And everyone's just like, dude, like,
can't
that's
do
just
that.
not appropriate.
Okay. Well,
What do you want me to do? Like,
Yeah.
I have my own way of processing stuff, and it
Mm.
is weird, and it's probably not normal. And like, you've listened, I feel, I don't know how to say, but so he just told me that he listened to a lot of my podcasts, which is weird. I still, because it's such a personal thing, I don't really care what the public does. So it's always weird for me when people say they've listened to my podcast and they've enjoyed it.
yeah.
But I'm sure that you've heard about my downhill mountain biking and stuff, and my jumping and extreme sports,
Yeah.
and that's all because of Duarte. He died with so many regrets, and there's so many things that I didn't do because I'm too scared, too pussy, like you can't, you're in your comfort zone. So after he died, I was just like, uncomfortable, I will do it. Scared, that's a sign I have to do it. So I started just pushing myself.
And then
so
I
much.
guess you kind of have to learn, you have to develop new breaks, I guess. Sort of like, you can't just then let your action be defined by the fact that there is risk and danger, so I have to do it. You have to learn, I guess, when not.
Yeah. Well, a lot of intelligent people will tell you it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those that I'm quite a person of extremes. So I'll operate in this extreme, then I'll go to this extreme, and then I'll slowly try and regress to the middle and operate in that sphere. With my extreme sports, unfortunately, I constantly lived in this. So I have permanent damage to my body, spine, and brain. But if I go back in time, I would do everything exactly the same. Because the person I am today, I'm super stoked. I'm super proud of who I am. And I had it. I had a vertigo episode earlier the year where I was alone in my parents' house and something happened and I was about to lose consciousness. I went into like cold sweat and it was literally sweat dripping and I was lying on the ground. Everything's moving and I was like, I don't know what's happening. And I had to crawl into the house to my phone, about
Wow.
30 meters, so I can phone my dad, because I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And I lay there and I was like, well, if I die today, I have zero regrets. And then I think also this accident that I had in the hospital, it gives you time to reflect, and I have zero regrets. Like I can die today, and I'm like, whatever, I did everything that I could. So I'm happy with that. I would prefer not to have brain damage and spinal injuries, but if that's what it took, then fuck it, that's what it took, you know.
No one is getting out of here alive, right? So
my wife loves me, and that's all that matters,
Yeah.
you know. So my biggest thing just with these things is I stopped doing everything. Like if I was single and if I didn't have a desire to have a family, I would probably continue the way I was. Not that I'm a bad person, but it's very unhealthy what you do. But I don't want to be a retard to my children. I don't want to have emotional problems because my brain's not working. I don't want to be incapable of getting off the bed and helping around the house. And that's why I stopped, because there were more important things. And if I started my sport at the age of 10, it would be different.
Right, yeah.
You know, because I started at 31, you can only, and because I was pushing too hard, maybe if I went a bit slower, I don't know. Like, there's many ways to look at it.
Yeah.
But we're talking about me, which is not the whole idea yet.
Yeah. Well, I guess, like, yeah, I guess I'm different from other guests in the way that I actually sort of know Duarte. So,
How do you know Duarte?
He was a part of Stellenbosch, man. I think we were closer in age than you and I
So
are.
he was born 83 and I'm born 85.
Is it that close? Okay, but...
And you were born 80?
Yeah. So, you know, every time I went to Bohemia, which was so much, he would be there with his hubby and like a crowd of people, and it would just go around. And
And my brother's one of those, for anyone listening, that is very visible.
Yeah.
Like, he's a big guy.
Yeah,
He was a big guy.
Yeah.
120 kilograms,
Yeah.
long hair,
The Viking helmet that he
the
always...
Viking helmet. And he's sitting there with a hubby, which is very visible.
Yeah.
And he had that fucking, not cellophane, but silver stuff, and he was blowing his little bubbles. And that was when he was the happiest.
Yeah. And he was... Dude, yeah. He was like a little Jesus. He was just, you know, like just 100% good vibes. And it was sort of like when you went, you know, if you were to sit in the circle, and, you know, he would like get the pie back from someone, and then he would like give it to you. It's so weird to think that this was just one of our friends, but it did really feel like, oh wow, okay, Duarte passed the peace pipe to...
Plus quite a few people came to me after his death, and they were like, dude, your brother was the nicest guy around. Or like, you know how fucked up Paul Roos can be, like if you in the younger crowd. So people older you can treat you like shit because they're older. And then a lot of my peers came up and like, your brother was always cool to us, he didn't care that we were younger. And we didn't even advertise his funeral, and something like 500 people pitched.
That hall was packed.
And we obviously didn't expect it.
Okay.
But this is the thing that, you know, I don't know, like it's all but fucking fuzzy to me. But at his funeral, I said, I called him an enigma. And the reason was, we as a family had a terrible relationship with him. Like, it was very difficult to have a relationship with him. But everyone in the world was like, this is the best guy ever. And that's why I called him an enigma, because he's not a bad person or anything, but it was just, I had a really difficult relationship with him. I know why.
Okay.
And he knows why. And we dealt with it. Not all my family members were lucky enough to have that honest conversation, but because we were so close. Like, it's a weird thing. I don't know if anyone out there has ever thought about it, but... Like, so he's dead, I'm dealing with some stuff with my psychologist, and I'm like, the only fucking person I can talk to at the moment that would understand that is my brother. And regardless if we didn't have contact for 10 years in our life, like, he fucking knows me. He knows exactly. There's this weird connection that you have with your brother, especially if you grew up very close to him. And so that's the fascinating thing, and it's amazing to hear all these stories. And my mom always appreciates it, where people come, because they had a very difficult relationship. And then everyone's like, Dwight was this amazing guy. And it's like, fuck, there's this whole other life that you just didn't know about.
He wasn't... he wasn't by the book, you know.
No.
He wasn't like someone... He wasn't going to be some headmaster's favorite kid. But he was like from the fundamentals, you know, like he had a good heart. He was generous, helpful, you know, those things that if you can look past the fact that he's got long hair, and that he's always walking around with hubbly, if those aren't the things that the way you judge people, then you could see that he was like that incredibly good person.
And you know what, like the amount of pain that he was in. And I think for a long time, they were thinking that he's got a gluten allergy and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And it turned out he had cancer. And it's like, I don't know if you know, but it's easy to be grumpy with your family. And it's difficult to be grumpy with the real world. So I think when he was tired and hurting internally, it was easy for him to just be that guy, where I think he put on a brave face in society. And for a long time, I think he had cancer and he was hurting very badly and it was completely misdiagnosed. And I think I need to consider that when I want to consider how he was with us. And especially the end, it was a fucking nightmare. Like he was 120 kilograms, he died at 70 kilograms. Like, or 60 even. Like, I don't know, it was disturbingly... It's like what you see in a concentration camp, basically. And... the thing that helped me with my brother is that I had to get a root canal and the worst pain I've ever been in my life. Now, he was taking these morphine type of tablets, I don't know, painkillers. You would take something like 4 at a time and it wouldn't do nothing. I was in the worst pain I've ever been in my life. I took 1 and 10 minutes later, I couldn't feel anything. And I'm like, he took 4 of those and it did nothing. So it's like, if I want to also... how he was with us, like I need to also consider that. So I find all of this very interesting. I spent a lot of time about this. So again, if people want to judge me based on my fucked up jokes, then please go for it. But there's a lot deeper, real person behind what you see.
I think there's always some kind of tendency to when you think back about someone to forget and ignore all the difficult parts of them, because you want to, everyone wants a nice tombstone. That's, you know, like great guy, but there's a lot more to people's personality. You know, it's a much more 3-dimensional thing. And so
plus we set up in a weird way. I don't really remember a lot of the bad stuff. Like I had a lot of resentments and a lot of problems with my brother, and I don't really remember any of those. Like I tend to just remember the good stuff. Like every now and again, I would bump into someone and that would remind me of my brother in a certain way, and childhood stuff and teenage years. And I think the podcast with the Romanian lady, I think she also mentioned something about how easy it is to forget. You know, that's why women would never... get another child if they remember how much pain there was the first time. Like we forget. I think there's a chemical that their bodies releases that makes them forget those specifics. I think so.
I have a lot of strange ideas.
So. I hope so, because I hear it's quite fucking intense. Dude, anyway, I don't want to talk too much about me because I can't, but that's not why I invited you.
Cool, well.
Dude, I want to jump into some of the shit that you sent me because it is super interesting. So I asked Ivor to come have a chat. Are you thinking of starting your own podcast? Because you seem quite chuffed with me doing it. Is that because you have a similar ambition to start your own podcast?
I think it will be amazing because I love ideas and conversations and hashing these things out. I kind of feel like my opinions, you know, it's really brave to be where you are because you're thinking out loud, you know, like you're asking questions, you're voicing opinions that I'm not sure are the ones that you really want to stand by when you wake up tomorrow morning. You know, is this the hill you want to die on? Do you want to make a comment about this thing or that thing, right? And so I'm still trying to figure out if I'm in the right mental space to put myself, out there at least regularly, or whether I'm just shit scared of being, like which one is it? Am I being responsible or am I being a pussy? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like if you look at this controversy regarding the governments listening to us, like what the fuck are they going to do with that information? Like I said something in my last podcast. I mentioned this guy's name and I said I nearly killed him, because that's how angry I was. Now, in a normal society, when you're quite angry with someone, not like, yeah, fuck, I was so angry, I nearly killed the guy, but it's just a form of expression. Now, if people who's going to take that literal, it's like, listen, you can't go nitpick about the word that I said. I meant like I was extremely angry with him, and I felt like doing him physical harm, yet I knew as a responsible society member that I'm not going to do it. So my form of expression is quite primitive. And I thought like, do I really want to put that out? And I'm like, listen, if people want to misinterpret that, please do. Plus, I'm lucky, like I have a European passport, and then I get the fuck out of here. But it's like, what are they going to do with that?
Yeah, sure. People seem really, I guess, disingenuous in terms of misinterpreting what people say online, like... Any reasonable man knows what you mean when you say that, but people seem to want to jump to, enough fringe people to be noticed.
But the good that your words do, doesn't that outweigh the negative that your podcast can possibly do?
Yes. I mean, I think it's just sort of, from doing it from the other side of the world. Where you're very isolated. It's just your connection with home is sort of thin, and it's always this social representation of yourself. So it's slightly easier. I mean, I go pretty far out on my Facebook posts. I'm a pretty opinionated guy.
Just so you know, at one point I think I switched off your visual stuff on Facebook, because I'm like, dude, it looks like you're living in paradise, and it looks like my life is fucking pointless.
Right.
Because you're going on these scooters in the middle of nowhere, and the visual stuff that you see, I was like, I'm finding it a bit difficult to look at that right now, but I'm like, how fucking amazing is that?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not on Facebook. So I don't know what the stuff you said, but just so people know, this is what he told me, and I was like, Jesus, this is going to be interesting. So he's like, digital nomad life, which I'm not 100% sure what that means. Startup life in SA, travels in Southeast Asia. And then the shit I really want to talk about, evangelical Christianity, militant atheism, and trying to be a good person. And then looking at South Africa from the outside. And I think that's amazing stuff.
Cool, yeah.
I think let's just go into that.
Okay.
What is militant atheism?
Right, so cool, let's do it.
Let's fucking go.
So I finished school 98, and that was when when atheism was starting to get a foothold in society as a legitimate point of view.
Okay.
Right. And that was not an easy one battle. So
can we just, for people that don't know, so the difference between agnostic and atheist?
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people confuse the two.
Right.
Do you want to do it?
Yeah, sure. So the way I understand it is there's two poles. So you have theism, meaning believing in some deity, and atheism, as in not believing in a deity.
Yeah.
And then you have Gnostic and agnostic, where Gnostic means that you believe that you can actually know, or agnostic, where you believe that it's fundamentally not knowable.
Yeah.
So you can be a theist, a Gnostic theist, which means you think that you can know that there is a deity, or you can be an agnostic theist, where you go like, I choose to believe I don't think we'll ever find a rock where Jesus or God signed that rock, and then you say, if you think that you will find a rock that where he signed, you're a Gnostic. If you think we cannot ever find conclusive proof, you're agnostic. So you can be a Gnostic atheist, which means that you believe that there's sufficient information in the world to come to a definitive, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Or you can be an agnostic atheist.
Do you fall in any of those categories?
Yeah, I think I am an agnostic atheist who is slowly getting older and wiser, and I'm not sure what's going to,
I'm definitely an agnostic.
Okay.
I don't want to go too much. It's like I'm a liberal, but I'm almost a communist as well. There's elements of everything that I agree and disagree with.
So I think how people
pigeonhole me as an agnostic.
Yes. So I think I was not very specific about the terms, but in general, I think how a lot of people use it is they would just say that they are agnostic in the sense that they are open to be swayed one way or another depending on so they don't take position. Like, I think that there probably isn't something, but I recognize that that's not really a knowable fact.
There could be.
Yes, there could be,
but there couldn't be.
And
I'm a bit like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Jesus.
Yes.
I'm joking, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I had Professor Jaco Geldenhuis, who I think podcast 10 or something, and he had I don't know if we talked about it in that one or when we had coffee the one day, but he's like, he doesn't believe it. And then it's cool to talk to a professor about, he started talking about black holes and this and that and how many planets there are, and I find that science is not the answer to a lot of stuff, but if you understand science and how big the universe is and how complicated things are, I think that helps you to have a valid opinion on this higher power concept. I don't know.
No, I think so. I think there's it's an interesting foray in our discussion, but there's questions when ancient religions said that God zaps you with lightning. That they made a statement about the physical world. They said shit happens like this. Now we know why lightning strikes, and it doesn't have anything to do with any
Zeus.
Yes. So that was a stupid point for religions to make back then. But religions could make other kinds of claims that are not falsifiable, which makes them maybe not that useful.
So if anyone listens, if you had to have this conversation in 98, you would be shunned from society.
Yes.
Because where we grew up, it's very conservative Christian, small town values. Like he said earlier, my brother had long hair. Like, I had dreadlocks and people just judged me that I'm a dropout drug addict. Like, if people smoke weed, they were like suspended from school and shunned out of. Like, I listened to metal and I was like the Antichrist.
Yeah.
So the type of discussion we have is quite healthy for us because we weren't allowed to have this.
Yeah. I remember in standard 9, so when I was 16, 17, right? I didn't know any atheists, and I had this realization that I don't think there is a God, and I was like very involved in the Christian society in school, and it was like I felt so bad that I had figured out this thing that I can't even tell other people about because it's like the most terrible thing that I know. Like, we're all following something total bullshit. How do I break it to these people, right?
You know what bothered me moving to London?
Yes.
Is that I was like, you know what disturbed me? It's like, I didn't grow up with any gay people. I didn't. Fuck, obviously I did. But it's like, people weren't allowed to be gay. I'm still sure that there's some people from my school that wouldn't come out. And it's like, it's none of my fucking business. But I'm just like, you couldn't be yourself. But it's still like that. That's why I'm probably immigrating out of Stellenbosch again. Maybe in Cape Town, Johannesburg, it's a little bit more open-minded. But Stellenbosch, militant atheism. So explain to me that one. What does militant mean?
Okay,
we kill people if they don't believe in...
To me, it meant you were actively trying to convert people.
Okay.
So I got a little bit bored with the Protestant standard vanilla flavor Dutch Reformed Church vibes. So I went to the evangelical people because they seem to be more convinced that what they were doing...
Is that like the charismatic stuff?
Yes.
Like shofar
happy clappies and those guys, yeah. So they seem to... Their actions and their words seem to correlate more. So I thought that seems more legit, you know. And then... That was very evangelical. I mean, you go and evangelize. You talk to people. You try to convince them that your view is right and they're going to go to hell if they don't.
Which is weird because those people pitch... It's like a sales pitch that's ready. It's like a gun that's cocked and they're just waiting for the right moment to let you know that they're part of this church and this is the answer to everything. It's like, when can I come to my church?
So there's this movie called The Big Kahuna.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite movies ever. And in that movie, it's two sales guys. It's Danny DeVito and Kevin Spacey. And then Peter Fasinelli is like this young kid who's now their apprentice. They go to a chemical convention to talk about selling chemicals to other people. Yeah. And there is this big kahuna, this guy with a big fat check to write to some company. And then, so there's the subtext of the movie is we're trying to convert this guy to our company. But then this new kid is also this born-again Christian. So they go to the party and he gets an audience with this guy. They bump into each other and then he talks to him. And the other two guys are like, wow, it's amazing. He's talking to him. We're sold. And then later when they speak to him again, they learn that he used that opportunity to tell him about his church and his religion as opposed to the chemicals. But the point of the movie was, there was the speech that Danny DeVito, he was telling this kid. And I mean, I don't know the whole speech. But the point that he made was that if you lay your hands on a conversation, then you stop being a human being and you start being an agent. Right, so if you have an agenda with a conversation, you're not interacting with that person as a human being. So he uses the example of ask them about their children and their dreams and their fears and those kind of things. So what is interesting, and I guess that's where the militant atheism thing for me, or why there was a step after that, is I came from the evangelical background. Then I became an atheist and I was reading all the books, and I always loved science since I was 3 years old. So for me, it was just natural. It was like the new religion. And when I saw that movie, I was a militant atheist. But what I realized when I watched that movie, even though Danny DeVito talks to a kid who's an evangelical, I realized that I'm doing the same thing. Even though I'm not preaching Jesus or some religion, I am laying my hands on conversations. I am trying to
convince people
that
their about your beliefs.
Yeah. So militant atheism is, in my opinion, was necessary at some stage to create enough space for people to be accepted as non-believers. But I think its time has maybe come and gone. And now I think there's more of a responsibility to be to more like lead by example. I think there's enough.
But you're not an atheist anymore. You're more like towards agnostic now. Or you overlap on both.
I mean, look,
it's just fascinating how people evolve.
Yes.
I've pretty much been I've always been non-Christian. I've just never liked the Christian church, although I was forced to go there. And I'm a very outspoken person, and this is a form of, like, some people like writing and it helps them. Conversation helps me. And I don't know, for a long time I just didn't care about this topic. And then as I became older, it was like I like the fact that there's fucking all of them can be right or none of them can be right. Just who knows? And it's like, you can't tell me that 1 billion Muslims are going to hell and they're better people than the Christians. You can't say that 1 billion Christians are going to hell. Then I feel I'm one of those. I live a fantastic life with great morals and principles. But because I believe in nothing, do you think I'm going to burn in all eternity?
Yeah.
If there is, I don't know. So I've evolved. And it's interesting, a person like you, so I've always been in the category whatever, but you've been in this category, this.
Yeah, I've been on the extremes of at least those two categories. I've not been an extreme Muslim yet.
Radical Muslim.
But
I actually, in one of the podcasts, the one guy's a Muslim, and I said to him, I might ask him to show me how to do their prayer. Because I find something very humbling about the prayer. So there's elements of the Muslim religion or Islam that I love. And I don't know, it's a very radical change to what our outlook on life.
Yes.
And I think that helps you sometimes.
I lived in the Boerkaap for 2-3 months 3 years ago, right now, 3 years ago. I was actually in the same house today. I went to go visit a friend.
Okay.
And that was for me amazing because you would wake up with a call to prayer at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you'd have 3 or 4 through the day. And there was community. It was kind of the first experience that I had where you could see that there was something in between people in the street that I kind of have a memory of our culture having in the like 80s, late 80s, with like straatbraai and those kind of things.
All the kids in the neighborhood playing together, no fences between the houses.
Yes, exactly. So that somehow we lost that, and I think it, from what I've seen overseas in terms of how Western people are, to start with generalizing, that's quite, I think it's quite common, that idea that we don't have that much of a community compared to people who are necessitated because they don't have the resources to have a sprawling yard that separates them from their neighbors. They live in each other's faces. So, the Boerkaap was amazing. So I have a few Muslim people that I know, and they're amazing people.
Yeah.
I know a few Christian people, and they're amazing people too.
And you know a few atheists, and they're amazing too.
Yes. So I think what you were saying about growing older, I think I'm starting to agree that it. For a while, I just decided when I just stopped, I'm not going to be a militant atheist anymore. I was just sort of like, okay, I don't care.
Yeah. But is there some people that might listen to this and be like, fuck you, Ivor, you were trying to convert me to this or to that 10 years ago, and they'll be like, now you're saying that you were talking shit.
Yes.
So there's a few people that would listen and be
like, my personal views haven't changed much.
Yeah.
I think there's more, the question is richer. I still have the same answer, but I understand the problem better, I think. But I was a CSV kringleier at school.
Okay.
So I was talking to kids about that, and then I became an unbeliever while I was still a kringleier.
Okay.
So then I just had to sort of...
Kringleier is like ringleader, but ringleader sounds a bit gangster.
Yeah.
But maybe that's how they brain fuck you.
Basically...
Calling you ringleader for the little kids.
Basically, an untrained 18-year-old was put in charge of explaining life's mysteries to 15-year-olds, a group of 15-year-olds.
But you know what's interesting for me is that, so I grew up very resentful towards Christian religion and just general religion, just because my personality is quite out there. And what religion, the way it was practiced here was be seen, not heard. You're not allowed to voice an opinion. And it was like, it's almost like if you were able to answer me, I would have gone deeper into this religion. But because you're just like, don't question, that really pushed me away. And for a long time, I was very resentful towards Christianity. And I'm now of the opinion, through especially talking to my dad, is I imagine there wasn't any Christianity. What chaos in the world would there be? So there's so much good that also happens through Christianity. Like, it can't just be categorized and pigeonholed as bad.
Yeah.
You know, so although there was the Crusades, and so I spoke to the Astrid. Communism isn't bad. If you go read Karl Marx, it's quite a nice little story. It's the way that it's implemented. And I think the problem is, the people who implement certain stuff put themselves forward as Christians. They put themselves forward as Muslims, but they're not actually the real Christians or the real Muslims. It's normally the people in the decision-making, authoritarian type of positions are the cats.
Yeah.
And then they unfortunately mess up the image. Because I've met some amazing Christians, and a lot of the churches these days, they do look at things a little bit more spiritual, and on a more practical level, and the type of way that they're getting involved with the community. My wife's best friend, she's part of this one church, and again, I'm very scared and but I love what they do. I like the way they do. I can see they feel good, and I'm like, that's amazing, you know.
From my perspective, and the other day I listened to Sapiens.
Okay.
And he does a history of humanity in terms of ideas. And it made complete sense to me, and I realized like that's actually just what was happening is we've had the religions, the big monotheistic religions, for a few 1,000 to 3,000, 4,000 years, and humanism has developed, like, you know, the idea that the human experience is the authority of whether something is good and bad and worth doing or not. And I've warmed up to Christianity to the extent that it is slowly, continuously been adopting humanist values, you know.
Okay.
So I think if you went to the Middle Ages, you wouldn't have a gay minister. But today you have gay dominist ministers. And that is not, I think, so I don't think that people just went and randomly reinterpreted the scriptures and now we have that. I think there was pressure from a humanist perspective
society,
that said like, hey, we're all neural networks experiencing the world, and to say that these people's experience is not good for God. You know, God's main creation is the human experience. So, you know, and I think in that way they kind of repositioned themselves. and that is in my opinion Christianity's great attribute, is that it's sort of engaged with the world and it's trying to figure itself out. It's gone through a few steps of big splits and reinterpretations and things.
I think we're just born in the wrong era. Like, imagine you were born 2,000 years from now. Would you be more content with the way that humans are living? Because let's say, for example, colonialism. If you were born 100 years ago, you would have problems with that. Now we've learned. If 10 years ago, marijuana was no, now it's fine. So let's say we fast forward 2,000 years, all these life lessons are learned, everybody knows. Do you think you would be happier to live in that society? Or is there something inside us as humans that will always nitpick on shit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's in our genes to have a level of dissatisfaction. I think we needed it to go see what's on the other valley. You know, maybe the fruit's ripe in the next valley. So I think that's probably part of our genes. But
so in a few hundred years, you'll still find something to be unhappy about.
It's hard to say that, but I think so. I think so.
The only thing is because I'm in that position now. Am I moving to Poland or not? And I've come to accept that no matter which country I live in, I will always find something that I'm unhappy with.
Yeah.
The solution to life at the moment is to find a solution within me that allows other people to be wrong, which I struggle with. That's one of my biggest challenges, allowing other people to be dumb, ignorant, naive, selfish. Like that's my big challenge, is allowing society and humans to be who they are, and that the solution is within me. But that's a very hard exercise.
There's that saying, everywhere you go, there you are. So if you don't solve the shit in here and you move to some magical other place, you're just going to have the same problems.
Just so you know, this is why I do the podcast. Because when I sit here, I don't think of society. I invite people that I find interesting, that are intellectually on a certain level, and then for the week that ruminates in my head. And that helps me. So that's why I do the podcast. It's not about my concepts and my ideas that go out there. Hopefully the people I invite have good concepts and ideas. But this makes me feel good. So it's easy for me to do the podcast, just to let you know. So if that's going to be your goal, to just feel better about yourself, then you plug in a microphone into the USB and you press record. And there's so much free software.
I think it's just that idea of having thoughts in public. You know, like I don't like to, because I think we're similar in that I'll go think the craziest things and then I'll work it back from there and see where I can go. Okay, that is I can legitimately have this opinion.
But aren't you, like I said this to somebody else, I'm doing consultation work and I spoke to this general manager and I was like, but isn't because all the problems you have is because you're too intelligent?
Yeah, I wish I could say that.
Isn't it because you're too rational? And a lot of challenges, and I find it similar to you, like the depth that you can go, that rabbit hole is quite deep. And then the problem is trying to rationalize that.
Yeah.
Or justify that. But then like somebody said to me, it's like, let's look at our culture.
Yeah.
The way you think and behave is so contradictory to your culture. Because the other topic that I wanted to bring with him is like the OG of OGs when it comes to interracial relationships, which was fucking highly frowned upon. And I know people still today, they would not dare bring a colored lady, a black lady, a Indian lady to their house. It's like one thing dating them, but it's another thing bringing them to the house. It's always like, what we always joke with people is, would you hold a hand when you walk around in a shopping center? Or would you just be walking next to each other? I don't know if those things...
Yeah, so...
Asma is Indian, or what is...
half Arab, half Indian.
Okay, so I don't want to go to, like we said, we're not going to go too personal, but, and if I remember correctly, her family was also not too stoked about you.
So
because we always think that it's the white people that don't like
They didn't actually know about me for the time that we were together.
No way.
Yes.
And that was a few years.
That was almost a decade. Yes.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
So if they listen to this, will they be finding out?
No.
They know now.
They know now, yes.
Hectic, dude.
Yeah, so that was... I mean, I think they were... Look, they were probably... It's an easier battle in a student town, in a much more liberal environment, to have that battle with my parents than I think to translocate this event to the other side of the country and have it there in
Durban. Where was it? Natal.
Yeah, northern Limpopo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it was a much harder battle, and everyone isn't always ready to have it. I was very, very nervous and uncomfortable the first time I had to share with my parents, that I have a girlfriend and she doesn't look like us, and...
How do you phrase that to your parents?
Sure, I have to try and remember.
How do you paraphrase? But because if people listen, in South Africa we have 4 races. Indian, colored, black and white.
Yeah.
So she falls under Indian.
Yes.
So you would have to go, Mom and Dad, my girlfriend is Indian.
Yes. Yeah.
And they would be like stunned silence. What was their reaction? Do you remember?
Yeah, they were, this is kind of the really beautiful thing of for me of having had this experience, was to watch people grow. Because I think like anyone at that time, this is 2005, 6, is people were very uncomfortable. I only knew of one other interracial couple in Stellenbosch at that time. So I kind of dumped my parents into a situation that they couldn't be prepared for, and to their credit, I mean, I really respect the way that they handled it. There was the initial shock that I think was very difficult for them. And I mean, they see people as people, so it's not like they were like, there's something wrong with her. It was more, this is not what we want for you. What
will society say?
Yeah, I guess there was a fair amount of that. It's like a little
bit more thinking of that.
Yeah.
Would it be easier for them if you said that you were gay as opposed to I'm dating an Indian person?
That is an interesting question.
Because both of those were big taboo.
Yeah.
And it probably still is in many places. If you look how many Christian people we still have. Like the amount of business meetings I sat in this last 3 years, and the second line that someone tells me I'm Christian. I'm like, how does this fit into our discussion right now?
Yeah.
So we still have it, like, especially here in the Boerland Stellenbosch area.
Yeah, so I think they would have handled it the same.
Okay.
Because it's not that they were judgy. It was just really foreign. I could sort of see how the foreignness dawned on them. Just like, oh shit, we are in for a very strange time. And we're scared,
Yeah.
And now, like, they love her, when they see her,
but she's such a cool lady.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, I chose the best one to break the ice with. Yeah, so it was.
How long were you dating before you told your parents?
It's so long ago, but probably a good while.
Like a year or two?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a year. I wasn't very.
So they knew that you had a girlfriend, but they didn't know.
Maybe not even.
Yeah, because again, like our culture, like your parents are the last people to find out about your girlfriends and intimate stuff. Like,
yeah, I wasn't.
Like your dad would say, like, "I love you," handshake.
Yeah.
Or if you have this hug, I don't know if you've seen Step Brothers with Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
They're right at the end, they try to like hug each other, and this is like super awkward hug.
Right.
It's like that's how it feels like with your dad.
I must say, my dad is much warmer. I actually have a great relationship with him, but in terms of understanding what was happening in my life, it's sort of that period where I think you will understand if you're a student or post school in the same town where your parents are, you're in that phase of your life where you want to establish your own identity, but you're kind of like bumping into everyone at Spar, at the shops.
I still can't go to Spar and have coffee there with anyone because I bump into... But if you were walking in a shopping center and holding hands, could you feel this and see the stairs?
Yeah.
And does that make you angry then? Or you were like, fuck, I understand that this is the environment that I live in.
Yeah, I was just...
Whatever.
Judge me, I don't care.
Okay.
I'll just... in fact, it's about time someone judged you on this. I mean, someone challenged you on this. We can't just keep saying, we're all equal. We're actually walking through your shop now, holding hands, so...
And do you know if it bothered her?
Yeah, I think it did bother her a little bit more than even it maybe bothered me, because it's one thing being the person, maybe if we were in a Muslim community, the stairs would bother me more. Because she's got some street cred and some understanding of, it's more of a three. So for me, they weren't looking at me as, you're not one of us. They were
Yeah.
looking at me as, what the fuck are you doing? You know?
But it's also like she's really pretty, so it's also a bit like, I think it's probably easy also walking down the street with a really gorgeous lady.
Yeah.
But it's weird. The other reason why I'm asking this is my brother, or both brothers, are in Korea, and the one dated a Korean girl last year, and they could not hold hands or be physically affectionate in street. And people, like just my brother in Korea, people look at him weird. Never mind if he's now talking to this girl.
Yeah.
But now he's got a new girlfriend, and she's completely different. She's affectionate in public, and she just doesn't care what other people think of her. But you can see that society is still a little bit like... But it's also like how they explain to me, it's not that it's frowned upon, it's just weird. Like I lived in Poland, and one of my friends was Kenyan. And we went into one of these side streets to a shop. And as we approached it, a mom and a 3-year-old or 4-year-old kid walked out. The kid literally stopped. He looked like this, and he's mama, charne. And he literally said, black person. It was so cool for him. It's like seeing something for the first time. And they're so curious, and they're openly curious. And my friend was just like, hey, how you doing? So I think it's also sometimes it's easy to judge, like they're judging you, but they're also just curious. It's a unique, I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure. There's curiosity. And I also just think like we don't come equipped with, you can tell someone you have to be comfortable with a gay person, right? But that doesn't prepare him for sitting there and then, okay, you're gay, oh my word, because we know that you're just another human. But if you haven't been exposed to that, and you come at it with a lot of background ideas, you think that you're sitting across the table from something foreign to you,
some antichrist.
And I just feel like as a society we should have some buffer, allow the person a little bit of weirdness. Every person that doesn't know how to handle you when you tell them you're gay doesn't have something against gay people. He's just suddenly finding himself in a situation where he doesn't know what to do. You know, I always think about, like, I've worked my whole life in software companies, and we're not particularly famous for
personalities.
No, yes, for personalities. And traditionally, there hasn't been a lot of girls in the office, right? So now basically, you've just been you've had a bunch of guys in the office for years dreaming about meeting a girl, right? Zero exposure. I'm using an extreme example, but zero exposure. Now the
like
company,
the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. So now the company hires a girl. Great. How does society expect that a group of guys who've almost never had interaction with girls is just going to magically, from their genes, just know how to be sensitive about all the things that they suddenly need to be sensitive about,
and not be distracted by nice perfume?
Exactly. If it's the perfume,
you know what I mean? Like, there's certain environments that you don't expect someone to look pretty, almost around the business table.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we should aim for a different. What I'm saying is, give those guys some opportunity to find their feet. You can't shit on someone the first time they don't get it right. They've never had this exposure.
Yeah.
Now you're hiring girls into the company, which is fantastic, but you can't expect, and in the same way, any kind of prejudice or preconceived idea people have about other people, I just feel...
But what you're speaking about, if I can interrupt you, is about people just being inexperienced.
Yes.
So there's that part versus the indoctrinated people with the extreme beliefs.
Yes.
Which I think there's two different people.
For sure.
You know, and I think I like what you say, and I think there's a lot. Plus, you know, there's a lot of people that it's almost like they were indoctrinated. This isn't correct. This isn't correct. Now, as a 20-year-old, they like, I've been told this is correct, but I think this is correct, but I don't know how to behave. And then there's those people that just blindly like, this is not
just
right,
sticking
and
to
fuck
their
you.
guns.
It's like, I don't know if you remember, I think like 10 years ago there was a Sexpo in Cape Town.
Yes, there was.
And it was this big thing in the burger, and people were protesting outside, and I'm just like, it's like Scientology. It's like, I always, like, some people have their belief system which is similar to Scientologists. I find certain Christians and Scientologists on exactly the same level.
In their sort of intense
You believe
fever.
this so blindly and crazily that it doesn't make sense to no one except you. But then there's people that understand Christianity. I'm like, fuck, that's so beautiful. Like, I wish I could have it. I'm almost like jealous of you. You know?
Yeah, so some people cling to, you know, it's maybe like the exposure is not actually going to change their views. But I feel like you should give people a chance to.
Yeah, I really like what you say.
Adapt to a new situation. And maybe a lot of them are actually not as bad as you'd make them out to be if you start judging them from the first.
Yeah, I really like that. I didn't think about it like that, or I've never had words like that, but I think that's very cool. And Southeast Asia, I'm sure that you experienced something similar. Big, tall guy, blondish hair, just look weird to them. It's like a fucking Yeti walking around, and it's like, I'm sure you get a lot of stares, and look like I felt like a piece of meat in Poland because I look abnormal.
Right.
You know, so people look at this guy.
Yeah, you are quite big. You're like, I'm out for you. You're like 6'8" or something.
No, I'm not that. I think it's 6'4".
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
193.
Yeah.
So I think it's the width that make me look bigger.
Yeah, you're not small.
So I'm 120 kilograms, 193 meters tall.
Yeah, so you must stand out wherever you go. And so this is kind of a good point, is if you were a sensitive soul,
which I am.
Okay.
I'm super sensitive.
Really? Okay.
There's some parts of me that is, my skin is that thick.
Okay.
Like, I put a joke on a group the other day, and then someone's like, not cool. And I was like,
okay, hurt.
It was like, I really like my joke. And then there's other times where, like the weirdest thing, like a lion will approach me and I have to fight, and it's like, I don't care. There's some stuff that my skin is very thick, and then there's other things where I'm like, I'm super sensitive.
Okay. So if you were to, you are big, and that's a legitimate observation about you. So if you were to go to some other culture, and people look at you, they're going to look at you because you're really big. You might, but if you walk into that situation with some kind of chip on your shoulder about people in this culture don't like people with blue eyes, then you're going to think they're judging you about your blue eyes, right? And what I'm kind of just saying is, if you are really strange, afford the people the opportunity to just find you strange. That doesn't mean that they think that you shouldn't have voting rights. It just means that they're legitimately observing the fact that you are odd. It's like your friend and the little kid. That kid isn't making a statement about the value of this person.
Or
he's
any
just
ideology or anything.
Yes, he's just legitimately noticing that this person looks way different than anyone else that we've seen, that he's seen in his entire life. So I think people should just give each other a little bit more.
Like on a stupid level, like we've all seen a pigeon. But once the pigeon comes into your house, it's like, wow, the pigeon is in my house. Like, look how cool.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, it's perfect.
It's just the environment. It's like we've all seen it on the TV or whatever, but it's a bit different. It's just weird. I find race a weird thing. Like my first podcast was with a guy called Marvin Beekers. And his mom, I think, won the world champs veteran 400 meters, but she wasn't allowed to compete in old South Africa because she was colored.
Wow.
You know, she could have been a legitimate world champion. Like, they lived in a place, they moved into a town, and then the gossip was like, oh, property value is dropping in the whole town. And it's like, I just find it mind-blowing. And I work with the township people. So I still hear, So one thing that's interesting, and I'm guilty of this too, like I've trained a lot of housekeepers to become waiters, and they say what they fucking hate is they clean the house, then they put something somewhere, and then the first instinct of the people is, you fucking stole my charger. But they didn't. They just put it in a place that they thought would be appropriate, which you really didn't consider. And we had exactly the same situation the other day. We thought the lady took our charger. It was the first time that she did it. And a week later, like, my wife found it somewhere, you know, and it's like, we're so easy to judge and jump to conclusions, and we don't consider the other person's situation. I just find it interesting. So by work, I grew up with African drums. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
A little bit in the music. So my mentor was Muslim. So the reason, that's how I got into different cultures. From high school, I hanged out with Muslim people. So this is why I'm okay with black people and Muslim people and whatever.
People with all sorts of labels attached to
but
them.
But you're a fucking rebel, aren't you? Inherently.
Yeah.
But you don't really care what other people think. Or do you?
I mean, I want to believe that I don't, but I think I'm also growing up and becoming more aware of, like, some, you know, what's happening inside your head and you know, in your world. And so, yeah, I mean, I think everyone, but yes, I am obviously, it's becoming more, I think when you're 25 or so, or you're invincible, you know, no one can take anything away from you. Your value is all in just, you know, you're starting out conquering the world. So I think as you grow older, you become a little bit more humble, and you realize that, you know, we're all trying to find answers, and you realize that the answers that you had were too simplistic for life. You know, you realize life's more complicated,
and we're all just trying the best we can.
Yeah.
It's like I'm jumping a bit into looking at my past and my childhood, and the conclusion generally is my parents were just trying the best they can.
Yeah.
You know, so many people have told me, like, my parents pissed me off, but it's like, we're all just trying the best we can. And if I was in that position, would I have done any better?
Parents are just kids that grow up and have kids, you know, like, it's not like there's some parent school and they graduate and now they know how to do it. It's my genetics and a little bit of culture, and then a little bit of them being good people. And so,
what's this digital nomad life?
Right.
Because it's weird you say that, because the last podcast is this nomad motorbike guy.
Okay, so I'll tell you.
He goes into the desert by himself.
Yeah.
So now you're on the digital. What does that mean?
Okay, so it's sort of we've had non-digital nomads in terms of people who work in different places, like photographers, travel journalists, travel photographers, people that go walk around strange countries and bring back products, whatever. So I think that's the idea of a nomadic worker, is someone who travels around. What the digital part, where that comes in, and so why I am sort of a digital nomad, is that the fact that we have the internet allows me to do my work from anywhere where I have decent internet connection.
Yeah.
So where in the past you were confined to the building where your employers are, so there is a movement of people that are designing their careers so that they can move around and work in different places, which is kind of nice, because you get to see a lot of places, and unlike maybe some people who have been to 300 countries or whatever, they are 300 countries, 200, you get to stay in a place for a month or two. So you get to have a deeper experience of the people there.
Your exposure, basically, to
so
eating the cuisine, meeting some of the people, and actually having a lunch with.
Yes, as opposed to just being in the resort and drinking cocktails. That's another topic. But so on the digital nomad front, I didn't even know I was a digital nomad.
Okay.
I realized I was never going to make my millions at working for startups and selling shares and whatever.
Yeah.
So then I was just, okay, well, I want to go travel while I'm working. And then I organized with my company that they said I could work from home. And then I just gradually moved my home further away.
Yeah.
Until it was in Asia, but no one said anything, so
Yeah.
it was all good.
Some of the pictures that I've seen, like you live in a forest.
Yeah, I've done that.
And then you just probably climb on a scooter with your laptop and then you go work at a coffee shop or something.
Yes, yeah. Or sometimes you just have really good internet in the forest.
No way.
Yeah, for sure. Like 10 meg up, down in it.
So even better than what Stellenbosch have in
Yeah.
the middle of a forest.
Yeah.
How fucked up is that?
So there was, don't get me started.
Do you have a public profile, or people can send you friend requests if they want to follow you?
Yeah, my
Because your goal now after this podcast is to start having your own podcast.
at
Because
some point, yeah.
maybe next week
Yeah, maybe.
I'll hook you up with a microphone.
Okay. My Instagram handle is Nomadfriendly.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's where I post all my stuff.
cool.
But it's not really even something that I don't use hashtags anymore. It's just my stuff. I have 700 people that somehow think it's worth watching, but I'm not trying to grow a base or whatever. But that's where I post stuff, and it is like you were saying. Yeah, it's weird to post stuff like I'm in Bali, look at this nice view, when I know that my friends are in an office somewhere and they're looking at it, and you get mixed reviews, because the reason I do it is I want to I don't really want to take a photo of, and you'll see there's no photos of me sipping a cocktail at the resort, because that's not why I'm there. But I want to show, okay, some weird things, like there's a sunset behind a volcano, but on the other hand is like, look at these local people, look how they live, look that see that there are cultures that are not defined by how shiny your BMW is. There are other ways to live, and you can go there. Like, it's not that hard. You just drive to the airport, get on a plane, get off, and there's no physical barrier between you and sitting next to someone who cooks 100% of their meals on fire.
It's more like an exposure to different cultures and areas of the world.
Yeah.
It's almost like just letting people know it's there.
Yeah.
Well, this is the same with my podcast. Like, just letting people know that there are alternative views of life. And if you don't like it, then please don't click on it, don't look at it, and don't do nothing with it. And it's the same with social media. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I personally hate it. My wife loves it.
And you love your wife, so by extension, you have to love social media.
No, this is the one thing that
It's just you.
we don't see this the same. But I understand the importance of social media from a business point of view. And now I'm becoming a personality. And the only way to become a personality is via social media. And I have to use social media now to show people who I am, so that they like my personality. But I do so many things, and then I'm like, this is the perfect moment to either take a video or a picture. And as soon as I think that, like, I have this friction inside me, there's this weird thing, and I just never take pictures. The nice thing is my wife does so many pictures and videos, and she shares it on Instagram stories, and she tags me, which puts it on my story. So
Okay, so maybe she should just run your Talking Orangutan podcast social media.
she can, but she's involved in so many stuff that she's trying to become a Instagram personality herself. Like, she's in fashion and show business and a variety of stuff, and she's perfect for that. But I also like hers, that she does a lot of charity work, a lot of NGO work, and it's a bit like, a Saturday you can drive 1 kilometer and help a community. Like, how much money do you have? How much time do you have? And how much of the actual time and money that you spend in your life is contributing to actual anything? So she shares a lot of that stuff. So it's not about her semi-naked in a bathtub. You know, it's about showing people in Poland there's different world, because people in Poland is also like live in a bit of a bubble. So the way she uses it is also in a nice way, you know. So, but this is one of the most difficult things for me, is to grow and evolve around social media.
Yeah, look, it's.
If I was rich, I'd just hire someone to do it. It's like just stand in the bushes and fucking take pictures of me and share it. I don't want to even know that you're there, but you have to. Like,
look, I think there's also a big difference between social media when you have a mission and just social media for shits and giggles. You know, I can't drive around tropical islands and like just take photos of myself at different beaches and whatever, because why? What? That's not really. I want to go to a gritty market where I'm the only white person and I'm too big for the aisles between the stalls because I'm broader than you. You know, like
you have to duck to come into the little
exactly that kind of situation. And then I want to take a photo of that and go, hey, look at this crazy situation. This stuff's out there. You know?
I'm sure it's like The Rock. Like if I look at his Instagram, which I haven't, but I know he tries to inspire people. So when he puts a picture of him being pumped, it's about trying to get other people to do the same. Then you look at these dickheads that look at my six-pack and I'm pumping muscle. And it's exactly the same picture, but you just get the essence of why the person posted it. Because I'm sure The Rock doesn't give a fuck how many likes he has. He's just like, listen, if I post this and you feel like working out, then sweet. Where the other guy's like, I don't care if you work out or not, just see how much I've been working out. Like, it's a weird thing for me.
I'm also cognizant of the fact that I'm not today's child anymore, you know. So I'm accepting that the way humans interact is changing, right? So maybe this is just how kids interact, and I shouldn't be like, get off my lawn, and be happy for them that they're doing stuff.
No, fuck them. No.
But
this isn't life.
I'm not convinced that it's going in the right direction.
No, but if you look at studies, like if you look at studies, there's definitely a general trend. Like, how much younger is your brother than you?
He's 9 years younger than me.
So can you see a difference in the way that he lives his life with his friends and his people as opposed to you? You guys grew up pretty similar?
Yeah, and we were quite, the three brothers and my sister, we there was a lot of cross-pollination of, you know, so.
But I can see with my brother that's born 7 years after me, like the way that he does stuff is a bit different. There is personality stuff, but there is also generational stuff. Like I tend to, like, they gave me PlayStation 4 and they gave me the new FIFA. And after 3 months, I'm like, cool. I've played it. I can't anymore. Where there's this generational gadget technical type of thing. Like I can look at social media probably like 5 minutes a day. Like I tend to read news on my phone as opposed to, but it's just because I grew up as a kid reading a newspaper. And the way that people interact these days, I can see it at work. I can see it with my training. People under 25, there's an emotional challenge working with them. I don't know if you find that as well. And if you go into third world countries where they don't have that many social media, gadget type of stuff, it's easier to have a type of connection with them. I don't know. That's my question.
That's a good question. There's a lot of social media in... Okay, so I've only been in parts of Southeast Asia. They like their selfies a lot. But...
Because all phones nowadays, it's like, I don't know. So I hate saying this, but poor people generally in Stellenbosch is black. So if you look at WhatsApp status, none of my white friends uses that. Everyone uses Facebook and Instagram. My phone, because I have like over 2,000 contacts from inquiries, fucking WhatsApp status is pumping, dude. That is their Instagram. All their shit goes on there. So there are ways now, there's different types of social media, and WhatsApp status is a form of social media.
Look, people are going to invent new ways of using the technologies and make it fit with their culture.
Yeah.
I got into Uber last night, and there was a video, like a voice conference going on in the car when I got in, and I told the guy, like, it's weird, your car is talking, and then and then he said, yeah, he's on a voice chat call with the other drivers, and they are communicating with each other about where the cops are and where there's a roadblock, and but in real time. The one bra will say, look, I'm just going through here, don't turn off here, and then they adjust their routes and whatever, and then I'm like, Uber is in Uber's mind, they got this, we'll tell you where to go. But again, these guys they're using social media, if you can call WhatsApp social media, to make it work for them. So I guess with the kids, to call them that, I don't understand their preoccupation with social media, but I am willing to accept that some of it might be that they live in a different world. I mean, I know for a fact a girl who was in a relationship and she had a breakup, and she wasn't very upset about the breakup, but when the guy unfollowed her on Instagram, she was destroyed. And so Instagram to her means more than it means to me or to you,
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird because I remember now, I think Asma might have helped me create my Facebook account. Because I had the internet cafe.
Yes.
And everyone was on Facebook and I wasn't, because I was like, whatever. But then, because I left the country, I joined Facebook because I want to stay connected with my friends, and it's a platform where I can share my photos so people can see. But I got very quickly disenfranchised with the whole thing. But I understand it's a gun. It's designed to keep you safe. But you can use it to conquer the world. So I think it's just the way that each person uses it. And again, I have to be open for all of them. I personally wouldn't. Have you ever had a Snapchat account?
Yeah, I did, and then I couldn't figure out how it works.
I understand there's generational gaps, and I'm a bit primitive that way. If you had a kid,
sure, I would have.
How would you go about?
How much exposure?
How much time? Because I said this in one podcast. I have my neighbor's son, 6 years old. He grabbed my phone the other day. 6 years old. Play Store, searches Minecraft, knows that you have to buy Minecraft, so you have to find something similar to Minecraft that's free. He downloads that. He chats to me for 2 minutes because he knows it's downloading. Once it's downloaded, he goes into the menu, he opens it up, and he knows how to play it. And he's 6 years old.
That is freaky.
And he's fucking better at the game than me.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome because it develops the mind. But then how much do you allow that per day?
Yeah, because let's say the world becomes predominantly a world where you are engaging in this world and not in our shared reality. It would be like not exposing your kids to English. You're just not giving them the tools for the next generation. So you have to allow your kids to play with these. Look, as a non-parent with way too many opinions, I think you have to let your kids play with this stuff. But I am worried when I think about my youth and playing in the evening on the streets and like digging things out of the ground, and it seems like it's not where kids are now. So
it's like football. Like, I don't know if you'll ever have another Lionel Messi or a Ronaldo, because those guys didn't grow up spending X amount of time on PlayStation, smartphone, and then a little bit of football. They were fucking playing football 12 hours a day. And by doing that intensely every single day, you become this genius. I think, I don't know if in certain areas we've reached our peak skill-wise. I'm not saying it won't ever happen again.
I think we have, because...
is there another Bruce Lee or a Chuck Norris? Like,
well, in terms of longbow shooting,
Yeah.
we've reached our peak, I think.
Okay.
Because no one is training for shooting longbows. I mean, traditional, or
Joe Rogan is.
cannoneering, like
Yeah.
cannon firing. I think we're done. Humans aren't going to fire cannons anymore anyway. If it happens, it'll be AI, and
Yeah.
so there are already skills that we've peaked.
It's like writing. You remember how much time we spent learning how to write?
Yeah,
Like cursive writing, and it's
it
like,
didn't work for me.
yeah, but like
can hardly read
who
my
does
answer.
that?
Yeah.
Like I can't remember. I take notes in a business meeting, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like
And can you read it afterwards?
I force myself to,
Okay.
because I have to set up invoices and lesson
Okay, so
plans
you
and
write neat
strategy.
enough that you can read it afterwards.
No, well I have to. Like
Yeah.
otherwise it's pointless.
Yeah.
But I sometimes use my phone because
Yeah.
my diary I forgot somewhere. So I use my phone. It's just weird. Like you learn skills that is you don't need. And it's like I don't have a kid, so I don't know. But when I think about stuff, I'm like, is this acceptable if I had a child? Would I allow my child to do it before I judge it? And it's like I would obviously let my child play PlayStation and computer games, but would I want him to climb a tree? Would I want him to break his arm falling out of the tree?
Yeah.
Like, yes. But I also see what challenge it is to get the kids outside.
Yeah, and okay, so what I saw, for example, the last place I went before I came back to, well, the last place I went in Thailand was to live with these Yule tribe people in the mountains in the north,
Okay.
and they grow coffee there. It's really amazing coffee, and there was this project where they took Chinese kids, maybe 8 or 10, let's say 10 years old, and they bring them out into those mountains, and then they go walk in the mountains like 5 days in a row. It's not like a 5-day trek, but and I chatted to one of the guys who was teaching these kids, and he was explaining how on day one they don't want to get dirty. They're like, what is this place? Why is it dirty? Why is there mud? Where's the fences? Where's the buttons? That kind of experience. But he was saying how after a few days, they're super into it, and they're picking things up and they're bringing it to them, and what is this thing? And so maybe we just need to be smarter about how we expose kids to those kind of things as well.
Yeah. What my landlord does sometimes, because we have the same internet, and it's happened a couple of times, he phones me, he's like, dude, is it okay if I switch off the internet in half an hour? So they'll unplug the internet and they'll tell the child, there's a power failure. And they just force him, because I don't know about you, but I love power failures because I start reading books. If there's no power failures, I don't read books because I find fucking shit to do all the time.
Yeah, online.
So
yeah.
But I'm gonna just double check the topic here, because I see we're on an hour and a half,
we
approaching
are.
an hour and a half, and some of these things is because you said you're trying to be a good person, and I think we've spoken a little bit about that. Unless you have some really fucked up stuff that you do and you're trying not to do it and be a good person. And the evangelical Christianity, I think we spoke about that, and then the militant atheism, trying to be a good person. Looking at SA from the outside, which is, if you're South African, you're probably going to struggle listening to this, because I find people are very defensive and very sensitive if you start comparing the country to anything else. They're like, yeah, but we are not in England. We are not in Poland. And I'm like, it's almost like a Picasso saying, don't tell me about Da Vinci. I'm fucking doing my thing. Okay. I don't want to have any other influence. And what I'm trying to do is, like you say, introduce people to an alternative thinking. It's like you've seen people holding, please give me money at the traffic light. And I think very few people think that that is a health and safety hazard. To have somebody fucking standing at the intersection at cars driving by at 60 kilometers an hour. And even if that person standing at the middle, it's a distraction
Yeah.
from a peripheral point of view. So just think about that. It is a safety hazard. You know, it's not healthy. It's not good for society. And so when I don't know if you found a lot of people that get very sensitive when you start mentioning stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people sort of just seem like they just switch off. Sort of, they don't.
But like looking from South Africa from the outside, what do you want to say?
No, well, I mean, I think it's just it's a perspective that I have had, that I've noticed that we are just so incredibly consumed by defining ourselves and each other as this race and that race, and like this race war. And I mean, that's maybe a strong word, but the point I'm trying to make is that
Power struggle almost.
yeah, and
Based on ethnicity.
yeah. So the thing is that it seems to me from the outside, and I've confirmed this with some other South African people on my travels, is that people are not getting on with the solving of the problem. You know, the solving of the problem is on each individual person's. You know, we've tried for a long time to change, to fix the country on like the macro level.
Yeah.
You know, give this party the power, and I mean, I don't need to go into how well that's worked, right? I mean, there's been some successes, but the thing that you see in other countries that I've been in is each person is responsible for his shit. You know, they're like, okay, so I am not rich, I'm gonna do something about it. You know, there's like an upward mobility. The battle is between me and where I can be.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems in South Africa we're all kind of we think that project of moving yourself forward can be replaced by a project of fighting between races. That's my impression. So, you know, the moment you set foot, you never have a conversation in Asia about race that I had. You know, those countries are more homogenous. So Thailand doesn't have a lot of different races. I mean, it's got actually a lot of different small little races, but they're not
at odds with each other.
Yeah, it's in that sense.
Because this is the thing that I'm very judgmental about my own culture, Afrikaans, Christian, and then obviously extend that to being very judgmental or critical about South Africa. But what I tend to forget is a lot of ethnic groups, a lot of languages, a lot of religions. Yes. And isn't it just amazing that we actually fucking still a country? Because Poland, they speak Polish and they're Catholic.
Yeah.
And they all pretty much have the same view on life, 90%. France, they're French. Germany, like it's pretty easy to manage a bunch of people thinking in a similar way. And I don't know if that's similar to some of the Asian countries you've gone. There's pretty much 80 to 90% is.
And South Africa is incredibly diverse. Like if you go to Spar, there's never two people standing behind each other in the queue that are from the same demographic.
No.
They're older, they're younger, their shade of skin color is different. The part of the country that they're coming from, their religion is possibly different. I mean, Malaysia has got Indians, Chinese, and Malay people.
But isn't it because their economy is quite good?
It's comparable, I think, to ours.
Okay.
But they're not that diverse. But and they're amazing in the way that they handle it. You'll have like a Taoist temple next to a mosque, next to a Hindu temple, right? You know, and they get along, but I think they're similar in the extent that they are also trying to figure out how to live with each other. Yeah. But we have almost an order of magnitude bigger challenge, and we're doing well. You know, I think we're living together. That's always like this difference between what you see. So this is also what you see from the outside That's the other perspective of South Africa from the outside is we look at the news. And if you look at the news, it's the EFF is tearing this apart and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And when you get here, and I'm always struck by this every time I come back, is random two people on the street have no beef with each other.
No.
You know, they get along with each other and they have the same problems. They've got the same...
And even I've seen a couple of EFF people walking around here and they don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
You know, there was a taxi, when I went voting, there was a taxi with like a bunch of EFF guys. They were just sitting there eating pizza. So
It's like, whatever, man.
like everyone else.
But I think we're also quite lucky with where we are.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
But it is like you say, I don't know, man. It's just, there's so many ways to look at it. There's so many positives and negatives in South Africa. And I finally gotten to the point where it's difficult for me to leave the country again. And I've been one of the biggest advocates of... But my challenges always with South Africa has been close-minded people. I like to use the word recently, integrated. That's why I wanted to move to Muizenberg, because it's more integrated. I find Stellenbosch difficult for that, because you still have neighborhoods and blocks of people that don't live with each other. I spoke to Shamig in the last podcast. What I love about the colored community, it's a community.
Yeah.
I don't have it with the Afrikaans people. But I've come to accept everything for what it is, and I'm becoming more, and it's difficult for me to leave South Africa in certain ways. There is something here that is like you can't find it anywhere else in the world. But I think maybe what you mentioned, I don't know if the problem that we have come from the fact that the authority, the money, the power lies with a small group. You know, so I think, you know, if you look at tension... When do I get the angriest? When my opinion means nothing.
When you're disenfranchised.
You know, like, no matter what I think or feel, if it's right or wrong, it's just like basically like, fuck off. And that's a lot of times when I deal with powerful people. And those powerful people are normally people with money. And I think a lot of problems comes from that people are struggling to survive. I don't know if that's why we have so much shit here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
and the people with money is desperately trying to cling onto it, because they can't consider a life of having a normal income versus above average, and the above average can't. I don't know. Like, I'm asking you basically.
Yeah. Well, look, I was riding. I had now the experience with the Ubers yesterday, and 2 years ago I was also in Cape Town, and talking to guys who are struggling to get around, and now it's 2 years later and the petrol price has gone up by like 30%, 20%, 30%, and they have to pay that petrol, you know. So it seems to me like sort of like things have gotten more expensive, but people haven't gotten gotten richer, you know. So people seem to be struggling. Look,
salary increases aren't correlating with inflation.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, I think if you compare like the growth rates in countries in the rest of Africa economically, you know, South Africa's sort of fallen behind, like I think 10 years. Basically, the Zuma years, we didn't really move forward, and so I'm trying to think where we're heading with this angle.
I don't know. It's just South Africa from the outside, and why do we have all these? Why do we think about it negatively if we're from the outside?
So I think the one point the point I'm trying to make with the, you know, is just that if you are here, for me too, when I come back, the conversation is consumed by race. You know? It's maybe a necessity, but it's an observation. It's nice to go somewhere and have conversations with people that don't revolve around who's got which kind of colored skin. You know, it's just you talk about what's after that, and So
because I find it irritating that my podcast a lot of times drifts towards the political thing, but I feel it's a topic that needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of forums where it is discussed, and I don't think there's a lot of people that are in positions to be able to discuss it it's like when did last did you have a black person over to your house for coffee? Like, how many people can say last month?
Yeah.
Or this year? Or last year? You know, and it's weird, like you just don't associate. Like, it's not a problem. Like when I lived in England, all the Italians hang out with Italians, all the French it's normal. But fuck, sometimes you'll have a French person over to you, but like but I think it's that added thing of with the race thing, there's educational gaps. With the race thing, there's income gaps. There's certain demographics and cultural things that aren't the music, the sense of humor, the clothing, the behavior. It's just so contradictory that I think it's difficult to...
There's a lot, you know, like I think in Joburg, there's a lot more racial integration because the socioeconomic differences have been... there are a lot more black people in Joburg who are earning
middle
big
class,
salaries
upper middle class,
and living in like neighborhoods that are upper socioeconomic, and that allows, and this comes back to my thing of like just allow people the opportunity to get to know each other, right? So if you live in the same circles, you go to the same bars, and then you don't have any black friends, maybe there's something wrong with you, right? But if you living somewhere where the only black people in your community live over there and work over there, and you never have any overlap, like what's the mechanics? Are you going to get in your car and you're going to go drive to the corner where the black people live and go like, hi, I really want a friend? You need to have like this situation where that's going to actually happen, right? So I was chatting to Asma the other day, right? So this is my Indian friend, okay? And we were talking about how the fact that we don't actually have a black friend.
Okay.
And we were talking, we grew up in Stellenbosch in the last like 20 years. There just wasn't black people.
There's no opportunities. But I can say the same. Like if it wasn't for my business, then also my musical background with black people allow me for black friends. Or my business allows for that. So if you eliminate music and if you eliminate business, there would be no opportunities for me. But it's still interesting that...
Yeah, and I had, you know, like, I'm just thinking about it now, I had black friends at school because we were at school together. But after school, I went this way and they went that way. You know, it's like, okay.
I just find it interesting, man. I read an interesting article a few hours ago about Brian Urbana. And he was talking very quickly about the quota system. And he's like, technically, I'm not a quota because I grew up in just like all the other white people. Like, so you had Ashwin Willemse that came out of like very poor neighborhood and blah, 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 where I went to like really nice schools and blah. So it's also interesting. It's just fucked up that we always talk about race.
Yeah. Look, I think it's
but
good.
Maybe it's necessary.
It's good that we talk about race. I think it's good. What your podcast might be good is that people might get to have conversations about race that they're not allowed to have on Twitter. You know, in the sense that maybe this is not such a PC environment, so people can just be a little bit more honest. I don't know.
Because you know what was my podcast and why I got into podcasts is basically what we spoke about originally. I grew up in an environment where no one could prepare me for the world because no one knew almost how to be an atheist and agnostic. And even if they were there, you couldn't talk to each other. And as I've traveled the world, I've started listening to podcasts and people are educating me via their podcast. And it helps me to formulate who I am and what I want. My brain damage, I know of it because I listen to a podcast. My spinal injuries, I know of it because I listen to a podcast. And I'm sure current kids are maybe growing up and, you know, they don't have parents that they can maybe talk to. Their church, they may be not allowed to talk to. They feel different at school. And maybe they listen to it and then it's like, cool, there's people with a different view and they're actually just down the road. It's like if you hear success stories, it's like, fuck, well, everyone always uses Richard Branson. It's like, well, if you listen to his story, maybe you can do it as well. But if you listen to guys like us that grew up in such a weird environment, there is an alternative.
Yeah.
So hopefully it generates discussion. And if you want to put some hate on the YouTube comments, please do.
I'm happy to learn.
No, I won't read it, but please comment. Put your negativity and your poison out there. I just don't give a fuck. Like, I'm going to leave here tonight feeling better. Again, I don't really care if this helps people, but I am quite passionate about race just because I speak to a lot of people that struggle because of their race. You know, like my training. Like, you know, as a waiter, sometimes the credit card machine doesn't work. And if you're a black waiter, that is a very tricky moment. Okay. Whereas a white waiter, the customer will normally, just try again.
Oh, really?
Whereas a black waiter, the people are suddenly like, what's happening?
Oh, really?
Why did I get declined? And it's a completely different situation.
Wow.
So I get a lot of these stories. So that's why it's a bit personal for me, because I spend a lot of time with people that struggle with some of these things. I don't know. Yeah. And it's because there's no black customers here. 99% of the customers in restaurants in the Cape Winelands are white. So it's again like everything is race.
The exposure here to the different races is very limited. And yeah, like I say, maybe I think we need to have these conversations. South Africans, I'm not saying it's understandable that we're talking about race, because it's like there's some strange things happening in our country and we want to talk about it. It's just refreshing to be in another place and to not have these conversations. And then it's one of the things that you notice when you come back. It's like, oh yeah, now I remember. So maybe what I'm saying is the amount that we talk about race in South Africa is not normal. It's not like you're going to go to other countries and you know, people just get on with life in that context. So, I mean, the crime in South Africa, the violence, the ease with which people are just okay with violence compared to...
how dismissive they are of it.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the Freedom Front's poster, like, slaan terug, that was the first thing I saw driving. I was just like, that's kind of violent. You know, in Southeast Asia, no one is violent, and the idea of a slogan which is
more something like stand up.
Yes, that's so I'm not trying to shit on the Freedom Front. I'm just saying
I don't even know who that is. I didn't vote. Fuck you guys. And I did political science as a major at university. So if anyone should know the importance of voting, it's me. I just don't give a fuck. Because I'm probably leaving the country. Plus, I don't read the news. I found out the day before election that it's election tomorrow. And I thought you had to be registered to vote. But it seems that you don't need to be registered to vote.
I think you could vote for the national one. You could just pitch up
and then...
Or you could register on the spot as well.
So I actually don't read South African news anymore because it upsets me. And I live in a state of irrational fear. Like when my wife moved from Poland, I was reading quite a lot of local news because I wanted to educate myself a bit about South Africa again after 6 years. And I had this irrational fear that she's going to get raped coming back here. And now I don't have it, but it's just only because I stopped reading the news. I can't. Because also the journalism in South Africa, it's...
Look, the way I feel about South Africa and the crime and about living here or not living here is... there's a very small but real chance, tiny but real chance, that if you go surf at Muizenberg, a shark's going to eat you, right? It's a tiny, but it's real. So it's not the actual eating that the shark is going to eat you that you really need to decide whether you're going to go surf or not. But you need to decide, can I enjoy surfing with the knowledge that there are some great whites swimming around behind the waves? If you can do that, then odds are that you're going to be fine. Disclaimer, don't do that. Or do it on your own. But anyway,
if anyone gets eaten by a shark, let's play this clip of Ivor saying.
But at the same time, that's how I feel about the crime. You know, I was staying on a farm outside Stellenbosch. Every night I would go stand on the dam wall and I would look out over Cape Town. And I would just think, okay, there's no barrier between my front door and Cape Town.
Yeah.
Cape Town is a population of 3 million people, maybe, I'm guessing now. If one in 100 people is a psychopath, so that's like 30,000 psychopaths. That I'm looking at 30,000 psychopaths, right? So it takes nothing for them to just get in a car, drive to the road, walk up, and, you know, shoot me in my little cottage.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that anymore because I was just getting my spidey senses. It's not good. And I knew it would be negligence if something happened to me because I had that feeling. And if I don't respond to it, you know, it would be my own fault. And 10 days after I moved out, there was a bullet hole in the door where I stayed, where my friend moved into that place. And he woke up from a noise, and then he went to see what's happening in the kitchen, and you know, there was a guy with a gun pointing through the burglar bars
At him,
and shot hair off the side of his head. Right?
What the fuck?
So that was 10 days after I decided this setup doesn't work. Right? The odds don't work out for me, and yeah, I mean, they had other incidents there as well. But my point there was, the odds are incredibly small, but it was affecting me. You know, it was like, I cannot do what you do and just forget about the dangers.
Yeah, I'm not oblivious to it. I'm still careful, but it's like if you buy a Nissan Sentra, you suddenly are aware of other Nissan Sentras. Now, if you read crime, you tend to hear and listen and focus about it because there's so much emphasis on it. So it's a little bit like, a lot of crime can be avoided. Like if I look at my brother nearly got murdered through a gang initiation. He was walking where he wasn't supposed to walk at the wrong time. Duarte nearly got murdered because someone broke in and stabbed him with a knife. He was living in a dangerous neighborhood next to the Tick Flats. My other brother got mugged 2 or 3 times. He was walking at a certain time of night. So I think the odds are quite small, but they are considerably higher than other countries. But I think if you're street smart, which I am, I've avoided a lot of stuff. I think also sometimes being big. But I cross the street if I feel something and I see if the other person do it as well. I'll cross it again, and then I'll do it in a time where I can run away. Like, I've also just been lucky. Sometimes you're just unlucky, but I think that you can avoid it, locking your doors. But I heard that in the Upper Boord the other day, somebody just pulled into a driveway. They closed the gate, and as the gate closed, people ran in and carjacked. Like, can you do anything about that?
Yeah, my colleague 2 days ago was locked in his bathroom by some guys that overwhelmed him when he was having a cigarette outside. So his guard was down for a moment because he's just standing outside, the security gate's open, and he's having a cigarette. Yeah. And then before he knew it, he was bundled into the bathroom. And
so I'm trying to make sense as I become older and a more mature adult how to look at this, because my grandmother-in-law was fighting in the Second World War.
That's definitely...
so they could have sat there and complained about this isn't appropriate, this isn't right. They just fucking got on with it. So again, I do believe there's an essence of let's just get on with it, make the best out of what we can. But I don't feel that they broke in 7 times a year at my dad's place, just down the road. But what is he doing about crime? Like, what are we doing as society as a crime? We're just getting more and more security companies. But that's not the answer. That's armed response. Like, what are we doing to deter? It's just, it's a weird thing, because do you know anyone that's been murdered?
No, I know people who have come really, really close, who are who are damaged.
Or do you know someone that's been shot at with a fucking gun?
Yes,
That's not normal. Or not normal for the societies we want to live in. Like, if you want to be African, that's going to be normal. But if you want to be an American, if you want to be British person, well, Scottish, Swedish. That is not normal. And I think the problem is that we maybe...
Yeah, so there's a thing of like that the frog in the pot. The water is getting hotter and hotter, but it just seems as hot as, as it was a minute ago, but actually the temperature went up. So...
Are we seeing these things because we don't live in the country? So when I left in 2008, Greenpoint was where all the prostitutes, whores and drugs were. When I came back, that's where Cape Town Stadium is. It's a beautiful place. I can see how the country is changing by not being here. But it seems that a lot of people don't realize how the country is changing, or they're completely oblivious. And if you say something, they're very defensive. And I'm like, who's got to die before you take it serious?
That is, and it's not going to happen when you are sitting with your gun ready behind the window, right? It's going to happen when you're braaiing outside. That's the thing that got to me, is like I couldn't enjoy the peaceful times anymore. Obviously I had some drama after I had some farm related events. So it doesn't have to, it's like you say, it's not normal. There are places in the world that I've lived where there just isn't crime. I've been like, I took my washing in Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai I've seen 2 beggars in a city in a year, and they weren't really begging, they're just living on the streets, but they sweep their area of the street and they sell their things, they sell some trinkets. That's the only homeless people I saw in that city. Right? And I needed to have my clothes washed, actually my bedding washed, and I took it to the lady in the morning and I explained to her that this is my only bedding, so I really need to get it tonight at 6. And she was like, okay, you will get it. And then I went home, and come 6 o'clock I'm still watching a movie or something, and at 7 p.m. I realized, oh shit, I need to get my bedding. And then I kind of knew, obviously she's going to be closed, but just due diligence, just walk there, and so that I did my part. Maybe she's still open. And I came around the corner and her door was closed and the gate was closed, but there was a bag hanging on the gate with my bedding in. Because she knew no one is going to steal anything, so just put it in a bag and hang it outside on the road. That's not weird. It's normal there. You can drop a girl off where she has to walk like 100 meters through a dark alley to where she's staying. And then my South African, I'm like, there's no way I can let you walk this. Like, I'll just walk with you. She's like, what are you going on about?
Like, they find it weird overseas when you say, please send me a message when you get home. It's like, are you a fucking weirdo? Why do you want me to send you a message? Like, just to know that you're safe. And they just don't understand it. We're here in South Africa, like, okay, if you're going to get home, if you're going to get into, like, I have it as a male. I fear that when my cell phone's only on 15% battery, I really feel uncomfortable just driving 7 kilometers, because maybe my battery fails for some reason. Like, you always got to have battery. It's a weird place to live in. But then I watched this documentary. If you look at the O.J. Simpson case, and if you look at what was happening in Los Angeles around about that time with all the racial tensions and stuff. Even I don't know much about it, but But even if you look at New York in the 90s, like one of the murder capitals of the world. So we always want to be like America, but fuck, where were they 20 years ago? Like, if you look at the IRA in Ireland, where they were having these religious battles, there were also like a lot of shit happening in these first world countries 20, 30 years ago. And I think it's easy to be like, well, we want to be like them, but there's a natural progression that I think we still may be going through. And that's my point earlier. Maybe we're just born in the wrong era. Maybe if we're born in 100 years from now, we're lucky enough. But if you were black and you were raised in America 60 years ago, it wasn't a nice place. So the guys these days have it better. Like, if you were born 200 years ago, you were a slave. So I think it's just facing the battles that we are presented by society. But I don't know if you find it difficult because you feel that you have the solution.
Why? How do I have a solution?
Because yours might be more harmonious, or you can see the harmonious alternative, but maybe not how to get there.
You mean by living in Southeast Asia and seeing how that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like we're critical of South Africa because we see all of this and we see that there's other solutions available.
Yeah, but I mean, I admire people who are living here and staying here, and I feel sometimes a little bit like a traitor because
sell out.
Yeah, but it's better there for me. I can relax and I can spend my energy on things that I care about, and
because I don't know if you have this, but something I realized. I just don't identify with Stellenbosch as a home anymore. It's changed too much from when we grew up as kids. So when I go down Dorp Street at 2 o'clock and there's no parking, it's blocked all the way from the top to the bottom. That is not Stellenbosch, if you look at the type of crime. So when I come back here, I just don't identify this as my house. And because of that, I feel like a nomad willing to travel anywhere. With the hope that I find a place that I feel like I can shoot roots. But unfortunately, I don't feel like that in South Africa. I don't feel like that abroad. I don't know if you have the same thing. Like I'm searching a place which I can call home. I'm fucking praying to God that it can happen. But
South Africa, that is something that was also very interesting coming back to South Africa, is how normal and comfortable everyday life is. In terms of, I know where to go buy what I need, you know.
Which dentist to see.
Yeah, those kind of things. So
which physiotherapist to trust, like.
Yeah, exactly. Versus, okay, now you're somewhere in Asia and you have some medical emergency and like, I don't know if you're good or bad. You end up going to the expensive one because you assume that it's gotta
be good.
So. But yeah, I think I find Stellenbosch is home because of the mountains. I think, I mean, you guys built half the BMX or the downhill tracks on Paradijskloof.
Not Paradijskloof, Montmarie. I built a lot of mountain bike trails.
But didn't you build like Eden down there?
I had nothing to do with Eden. Okay. So Eden, there's a few guys that will not be listening to this, but Eden's going back 15, 20 years ago. So there are people that did that, and those things have been there for a couple of decades. I had nothing to do with Eden. A kilometer on, there's a farm called Montmarie.
Yeah,
I was very involved with that.
Okay. Yeah, so these mountains are I'm not too...
Isn't it weird flying into a country or a city and there's no mountains?
Yes.
And standing on a plain where it's a plain of fields and there's no backdrop.
Yeah, it's...
I went to Mallorca. Yeah. No, not Mallorca. I went to Mallorca in Spain, and they have rocks that if you don't wear sandals, they cut your feet. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this? I went to a place called Orangutans in Turkey. They don't have sand, they have pebbles. I was like, that's weird. They have a sea, it's not an ocean, there's no waves. It's like lying next to a fucking lake. Yeah. And then when I did that, I was like, Jesus, just Cape Town beaches. It's got white sand, the rocks you can climb on. You've got a mountain backdrop. Like, the nature is just
Cape
crazy,
is
man.
Amazing. Yeah.
But I'm like, it's this constant scale of crime. Fuck it. Like, as I say to people, like, how many beautiful beaches are there? Like, if you go to Muizenberg, fuck, I want to stop there and take a picture. Jesus, I'm not going to stop there. Like, how fucked up is that? Like, please don't stop there. Like,
and so that's the other thing of why I felt that I left is I want to be comfortable. I want to interact with everybody where I go. And the situation in South Africa was just for me that I can't stop on the road to Muizenberg on the coastal road and just go chat to someone there, you know. It's not a safe place to stop and just and like last night I was going to meet my friend at a bar in Cape Town, and so I thought, cool, I'm just going to walk down Long Street just to to soak up the environment. I've been doing it in every other city that I've been in Southeast Asia.
Long Street is one of the main streets in Cape Town.
Yes, and it was horrible. I ended up just calling an Uber and just
No way.
because you can't.
And you could do that 10 years ago. I remember doing gigs as a band. There was a thing close to Green Market Square, and you could walk that whole place.
So it was just creepy,
But I have to periodically pick people up from the airport, and the amount of times that I've got to see, is there any shit happening on the N2? Like, you actually have to plan. What's the N2's vibe like? Am I going via the other way? You know, it's just it's weird, and people get so disconnected from this. I'm like, the amount of times that I've heard people that they drove over bricks and stuff that was put onto the N2 trying to get them to stop, and
and that doesn't.
The amount of people that's told me, like, if the police have to pull them over, they won't do it. They'll drive to the closest police station. People that say they don't stop at certain red lights because they're just too scared to do that. I'm like,
well, I mean, I think the police put signs up on the N2 that says if you get a flat tire, just keep going.
Is it?
Yeah. Well,
No way.
I mean, we'll check it. It'll be in the show notes.
Again, quote Ivor on this.
And you know, for me, this is not a good place for me to go and explore as deep as I want to among like people who are different from me. I can walk into a foreign culture in Southeast Asia, and the worst thing that'll happen to me is like someone will shout at me because I'm offending them in some way that I don't understand.
Yeah.
But
it's like in certain cultures, you're not allowed to show the bottom of your feet.
Yes, that's a Buddhist thing, because that's like the bad in your head is like weird. The first night that I arrived in Thailand, I was being eaten by mosquitoes, destroyed. So I wanted to find a candle, because in our family we have this thing where if you drop wax on the mosquito bite, it stops itching. I think the heat messes with the proteins that make you itch. So I walk into this, I walk on the street, and then I see a shop front. So I go in, and there's this ancient lady, but she's sort of lying on a cot. And I just like, okay, I don't think you're going to be the shop assistant. You're just sleeping on that cot. So I walk around there and I scratch around. I'm looking for the candles. Someone will eventually come.
Yeah.
And then she gets up and she starts screaming and shouting. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But okay, maybe she's just shouting for someone to come and help me while I'm looking for the candles. Turns out, the next thing, the car stops in front of the place, and this guy comes in and he's like, "Hey, you, what you do? I'm like, I'm looking for candles. I show him a photo of a candle, and he's like, "Oh, you go 7-Eleven," and then so I start walking to 7-Eleven, and then I realize that something weird happened here.
Yeah.
So I ask him, like, did I do something wrong? And then he's like, yes, this is my house. So he lives. So I'm so used to a fence and electrified something and a garden and then someone's house with a front door. And this guy has basically 2 garage doors on the street.
Yeah.
And he pulls them up and then they live.
Yeah.
That's their house. So I just wandered into his house and started, like, woke up his grandmother, who's just like sleeping there, and started ruffling through their shit, which I thought was a shop front. It was a shop front style glass displays with their stuff in. So
it's weird, man.
Weird.
But
different.
I love that.
Yes, but I wasn't shot or attacked or. It was just a weird situation.
Knives were pulled out.
And that was the first day, and I never stopped doing strange things and walking through strange places because it's the cost of being wrong is not death or violent crime. And you need to be able to be wrong to learn and to have experiences that you can't.
I don't know, man. It's I'm just trying to make sense of it. You know what's cool? I think we'll finish on this because I see we're going on to 2 hours and probably no one's listening anymore.
Us rambling on.
I find it interesting being special. Like, if you walk around another culture, there's something special about you. So I quite like the eyes on you or stuff, or people are just curious. Well, yeah, you just blend in with the crowd. You're just another fucking person. So I like that being overseas. There is this essence, but then also, I don't know if it's like I don't like my own culture, so I like their cultures more. It's I'm very critical about my own, so I'm not about yours. But then I also just have this general curiosity for other cultures. Do you have the same stuff?
Yeah, I'm super curious about other cultures.
What do you think of Buddhism? Have you got involved with that a bit, or not really?
Yes. So it was very interesting, and it's a strange setup. You know, in Christianity, there's pews, and there's someone in the front, and he's telling you this is how you should be, or this is how we understand this.
Literally preaching.
Yes, and Buddhism is this. In the temple, there's nothing. It's just the floor, and you come and you find your spot, and you have your spiritual interaction with what should be just sort of a symbol of be like the Buddha, as opposed to praying to the Buddha. What I eventually learned is that how Buddhism is practiced by the everyday Buddhist person on the street is not the same as what our idealized view of
what we see in the movies.
Yes. They do a lot of strange things. It's very much based on, there's a lot of ideas of luck.
Okay.
My friends would go on a road trip, and then they would go, in their words, they go to the temple to ask Buddha's blessing for their road trip.
Okay.
The idea that I have of Buddhism is there's no supernatural. Buddha isn't alive to bless your road trip.
Yeah.
He's a guy, he lived and he died, and he figured out some stuff about suffering. So it's very interesting. It's very beautiful. I think it really has an effect on people to be they are way more peace-loving. They have this ritual called making merit, where you go to the temple and you buy, or you can go to the market. That's actually better if you go to the market, but you buy animals that are in captivity, like a fish, and then you release it into the river.
Okay.
So, I pointed out to my friends that you're basically creating an industry of catching fish for other people to release, and maybe the fish would be more relaxed if no one did that. But what they are doing in their mind is they are on a regular basis running through the mechanics of being kind to a living creature. So yes, the fish is probably very annoyed that it has to be the object of your ritual.
Yeah.
But everyone in their culture who at least practices that on a regular basis practices practical kindness. They see what's happening.
Yeah.
They see there the fish goes. They're like, I did that.
It's weird sitting in one of those temples. Interesting.
It is very weird. I once went to a temple to go meditate because I wanted to do it properly. Well, like in the proper setting.
Yeah.
And I know that there's the women sit here and the men sit here. And so then I went and sat with the men. And I was wearing like some white clothes indicating I'm doing something meditation related. But I sat all the way at the back, and I sat basically in such a place that people who arrived after me couldn't get to pillows. So it was super awkward because there's all these Thai people, and there's the guy reciting some like chants or mantras, and there's this farang, like foreigner, sitting in the back in the way, and it's this peaceful reverence in the place. Everyone is calm, and then everyone that gets to me is like, oh, sorry, and climbing over me. And I'm trying to meditate. I'm really trying to put in some good time, and like you start feeling like I don't want to leave now, because then I'm just like the guy who just walked in for 5 minutes and left. So I sort of stayed put, but it just became more and more awkward, and eventually I left. So
there is an energy inside those places.
Yeah, they're obviously from years and years of design. I guess they've probably figured out some things that make people feel comfortable on a good level of.
Because I've gone to a couple of Catholic churches in London, and again, I'm not religious, especially not Catholic, but I've gone in and I'm like, there's something here. Like, there's obviously the design, the architecture, but I almost feel like there's a spirit of, because some of those, like I went to St. Paul's Cathedral. It's the first time I lit a candle, and there was something in that little ritual that I could feel it, like just being in the presence of that place. I don't know, I just find it interesting, man. Like, and I could assume like the Buddhist temples, it's so contradictory to what we grew up here. So I must be having a weird experience in there.
It is weird, but then I guess as a foreigner, you don't really know how comfortable you can be. I mean, it's not strange to see a girl plug her cell phone into a pillar holding up the temple and charging a cell phone while the person next to her is praying.
Okay.
So I was always careful to do that kind of thing because I don't know where the boundaries of acceptability is. Yeah. But I would just see that. I would walk in like trying not to make a sound, and there would be a girl on her phone plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
They're not as draconian, you know. You're not going to go to hell if you stick your phone into the pillar.
Yeah.
It's a place for you to come and do your practice.
Yeah.
But the religion is very much about you have a responsibility to be, kind to other creatures and to yourself and to So,
last question: is there a hell?
Yes, I think there is a hell.
Is it?
No, but not in the supernatural sense.
Is there a heaven?
I think there.
Is there afterlife?
No, I don't think there's afterlife. But I think there are situations that we can get ourselves in as a species that can be hellish or heavenish. So I think
after death.
In this life.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
But afterlife, I don't think there's anything.
Nothing.
No.
Okay, but you don't think, or you know?
No, I don't know, but I don't think.
99% sure.
90. I'm open to things being very weird, but I've not seen anything that makes me think. I think everything we know about science is wrong.
Yeah, it's weird for me, man. Like obviously with like when my grandmother died, whatever. But obviously when your brother dies, you're quite close to. It's a bit like, is there something there? But I also think like because he's cremated. I think there's also a element of it's easier for me to let go because there's no grave.
Right.
There's no like casket and the body is lying there. So I think it's a bit easier for me to think like, I like the fact of being cremated, where my wife thinks it's fucking crazy to be cremated. It's like weird.
Did you guys scatter his ashes or do you have it?
I think half was given to my parents and half was given to his girlfriend.
Okay.
And I think she went to a special place somewhere in Namibia and had like a ritual of scattering it there, which I think they were either going to go live there or go on holiday there. I don't know what my parents did with theirs.
But it is kind of beautiful. I like the cremation and the idea of just becoming part of the world again. That we all are before we start.
I don't mind getting thrown naked into a hole. Because then I go back into the earth. But buying a 20,000 rand casket and just taking up space.
Have you seen those trees? Like it's basically a tree. There's a bag and then the body goes in the bag. And then the tree gets sort of planted with the bag, and then it's literally this tree is going to feed on this soil, and
No way.
Yeah.
That's weird, but cool as well.
It's kind of a pretty image. You can Google it. Like the idea, I mean, I think they only have diagrams, but the idea to me is kind of...
I like the idea of going back, and I think... But everyone again, like my wife grew up Catholic. She's not very religious. But her sister died also very young. Her dad fucking visits the grave religiously. And I think for some people that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm just not one of those. But coming back to the question, is there an afterlife? It's weird. I can't think about it. Like, I just don't care really. But yeah, let's finish on that highlight. Let me see, 137 minutes. I don't know how long of that we were actually recording, but I think from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that is about 2.5 hours worth of talking.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Dude,
That was fun.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Wicked. Let me press